English class. Children, today we are going to do a new lesson from your book Vistas on the face of it. This play deals with the loss and isolation. It tells us how to brave the adversities in life, how to face the handicap, how to face the problems in life with optimism. In this play, you shall also understand that how a little child Derry he undergoes metamorphosis after meeting Mr. Lamb. Go through the video and understand it well. So now children, coming to the play. This play on the face of it is divided into 3 scenes, with the first one being the longest one because it is over here in the first scene that Derry, the lad, a young boy who is 14 years of age, he undergoes a metamorphosis. Metamorphosis means a complete change in thought process. This play, children, it features an elderly gentleman whose name is Mr. Lamb and a young boy of 14 whose name is Derry. Both of them, they meet in Mr. Lamb's garden. Derry, he enters the garden stealthily, hidingly. Thinking that no one was there, he entered the garden, but is surprised by Mr. Lamb's advice, mind the apples. So when he jumps over the wall, he thinks that there is no one inside, nobody must have seen him coming, but then Mr. Lamb, he tells him, mind the apples, that is, be careful of the apples. And this young boy, he's a little scared. And then he is confused and he also feels guilty because he had entered the garden out of curiosity, but feels like having got caught by Mr. Lamb. And then consequently he is also embarrassed and he wants to go back home. However, Mr. Lamb, he reassures him, he tells him that he did not mind strangers entering his garden or his house at all. And it was that the same reason why he left his gates open all the time of his house, of his garden. He said that he left the door open all the time so that anyone could enter his house at any point of time. Mr. Lamb, he does not know that Derry is a complex-ridden boy. Complex-ridden means that he was complex because he had half-burnt face. So, he is surprised when Derry reacts haughtily, rudely to the word afraid. Derry tells Mr. Lamb that it is people who are afraid because he has an ugly face, one side of which got burnt due to an acid. So he says that it is people who are scared of him. He is not scared, and they get scared of him. They are frightened of him because he has got a very ugly face. And Mr. Lamb, he reacts quite unexpectedly to this and remains cool. He explains to Derry that he is going to make jelly out of those ripe apples. But Derry, he does not like this change of topic. Mr. Lamb, he tries to build up the boy's confidence by telling him that he loves all creatures made by God. All are God's creations, and nothing in this world is worthless that it deserves to be considered as a trash or a waste. Even weeds, they have their own value. What are weeds? Weeds are the grass that grows on its own in the gardens. Now, when Mr. Lamb says this to Derry, he tells him about his own handicap as well. He had a tin leg, Mr. Lamb. He had one false leg that was of tin because his real one was blown off in the war. The children used to tease him by calling him Lamey Lamb. Lamey, lame, from the word lame, that means a person whose leg is broken. But he did not mind it. And he also advises Derry to ignore what people comment about him as well. Derry, was still bursting with anger against this world, and he was critical of his mother too, because his mother also kissed him on the good side of his face. Mr. Lamb now was to deal with the negative attitude of the young boy in a positive way, and he advised him to think of the beautiful objects of the world. Now, Derry, he feels very interested in this unusual conversation, which was very weird for him because this had never happened before. And he also liked the ideas of Mr. Lamb. At this point, Derry makes a meaningful comment by saying, "Think of all those people worse off than you." However, bitterness once again takes the better of Derry, as he is again reminded of the negative comments of the people about him, to which Mr. Lamb asks, "So, you believe everything you hear?" indirectly advising him to hear only those things that are worth listening to. And in the meanwhile, Mr. Lamb does not forget the task before him and thinks of the beehive and the musically humming bees. Realizing that Derry is interested in what he says, Mr. Lamb narrates the incident of a timid man who refused to come out of his house lest he should meet some fatal accident, but died in his own room itself because the picture fell off the wall on his head and killed him. So, Mr. Lamb, he relates a story about a man who is scared to go out, an old man, he is scared to go out lest he should die. But then, if death had to come, it came in his house itself. Why? A picture hanging on the wall fell on his head and the man died. Through this story, Mr. Lamb, he wanted to convey the thought that one cannot change one's destiny. And the story makes Derry laugh heartily, and from then on, his attitude towards Mr. Lamb in particular and life in general starts taking a U-turn. Mr. Lamb, he tells Derry that he dislikes curtains because they shut out the things. They shut his vision of the outside world. Derry, he recollects the opinion of his family members about him and is reminded of their pitying attitude towards him. Mr. Lamb has an encouraging word for every passive and pessimistic observation of Derry. He reminds Derry of the positive things that he has, like strong legs, eyes, ears, tongue, brain, and much more. And he advises him to set his mind to doing things in order to be better than all the rest. Words of wisdom continue to flow from Mr. Lamb, and he tells Derry that every human being is his friend and that it is not necessary to be acquainted with the one in order to be one's friend. And he also tells him about the importance of people. Further, he also advises Derry to love all mankind because hatred, it corrodes us, it breaks us from within, and it hurts us more than any acid can. Derry's problem was that he was never obsessed with himself. But now, for the first time, he talked about Lamb and his handicap. He asks Lamb what would happen if he were on his own and fell off from a ladder and broke his neck. He could lie on the grass and perhaps die. But Lamb, who had faith in destiny, he again gives a cryptic answer. He said, "I could." And Derry knows that his presence in Lamb's house could help him, but at this stage he is worried about his mother also, who could have been waiting for him. Then he promises Mr. Lamb that he would return, and he goes back home. At this point, Mr. Lamb, he thinks to himself that everyone would say that they would return, but no one would, and this boy would also never return. In the second scene, Derry, he reaches home and tells his mother about the decision to go back to his new mentor. And the third scene, he comes back to Mr. Lamb's garden. In the final scene, when he comes back to Mr. Lamb's garden, at that time Derry's apprehensions prove prophetic. He had prophesied that if at all Mr. Lamb was alone at home and he would fall off, he would break his neck and he would die. So when he came to Mr. Lamb's house, he saw that Mr. Lamb was fallen. He had fallen on the ground, and Derry calls out to him but does not get any response. That is, Mr. Lamb had died. But then, children, even after his death, from this play, on the face of it, we learn a lesson from Mr. Lamb, that loss and sense of isolation and how an individual should deal with these things. He must brave every situation. We must face every situation that comes to us in our life, and with optimism, without grumbling over our handicaps, because it does not lead us to anywhere. I hope, children, all of you have understood the outline of the story well. Please go through the text in your books. In case of any doubts, do post your queries in the comment section of the Google Classroom. Till then, stay safe. God bless you all.